nice to be back with you guys. I think some of you, I can recognise a few names and faces there of people who joined the Pilates over the summer. So it's nice to be back doing a little bit of Pilates with you all again. So for those of you who haven't met me or don't know me, my name's Linda. I'm one of the physios at the Institute of Sport, and I've worked with swimming for over 10 years now. I'm also a certified Pilates instructor. So, you know, I'm very passionate about Pilates and also how Pilates can help swimming. So I hope you find today's session enjoyable. I hope you see the relevance of it to your swimming. Obviously, a lot of you will have different experience when it comes to Pilates. So some of you might have done a lot of Pilates, some of you might be your first Pilates class. So just take it completely at your own level. Don't feel pressured to do any of the higher level stuff if you're not ready for that. Also, if you've got any injuries, any little niggles, just make sure that anything you're doing isn't aggravating that. If you do feel that anything is uncomfortable or painful, obviously don't do that. You can either modify the exercise slightly, stick to the lower level, or just take a little rest and then join back in when you're able to. So I'm not going to play any music. A lot of you, I think all of you there, are on mute. So if you want to put some music on yourself in the background, then that's fine. Sometimes nice to have some music to do your exercises too. Now, does anyone have any questions before we get started? Either just shout up or pop it in the chat function. And that goes throughout the class. If you have any questions, just unmute yourself, ask the question. It's probably a question that somebody else has as well. Or as I say, you can use the chat function. I'll try and look at that every now and again throughout the class. So if no one's got any questions there, we'll get started. We're going to start with a little warm-up in standing. So just come up onto your feet. We're going to start with our feet hip distance apart. Just lift up nice and tall. So as if you had a piece of string lifting you up from the top of your head as tall as you can. You're going to keep your pelvis just in a nice natural resting position. So lengthening your tailbone down to the floor and not allowing yourself to stand with a big arch in your back. So lengthening that away, just gently switching on through your center and trying to stay nice and wide across your shoulders. And from here, keeping that good posture, we're going to bring the arms in front. And just start nice and simply, just taking the arms out and then back. So as you're doing this, try not to squeeze your shoulder blades together. Try and keep your shoulder blades wide and just move from your shoulder joint. And then from here, we're going to extend the arms away and then come back in. So we rotate, extend, and then come back in. So all pretty simple to start off with. Just as you're doing this, just moving from the arms, keeping your center set, keeping that nice tall posture. And then to make it a little bit more challenging, on this next time as we take the arms away, we're going to lift up onto the toes and then control back down. So we extend away, lift up, and then control down. So as you're doing this, try not to allow your shoulders to hunch up, keep them resting down, and try to keep that good control, feeling the pressure down through the base of your big toe as you lift and lower. So it's almost like you've got little springs underneath your heels, helping to lift you up, and then helping as you control back down. We'll just do another couple here. As you lift and lower. And then coming to rest on this next one, just taking a little shoulder roll round. So don't think too much about this movement, just getting rid of any tension that there might be around your shoulders or your neck. Just circling those arms round. And then from here, we're going to take your left arm, reach it down the side of your leg to get a nice stretch into that right side of your body. So you're trying to lengthen your ribs away from your hip, and then just to increase that, taking the arm all the way over. It's as if someone was pulling on your arm. So keeping that really nice and long, getting a good stretch through that side, and then just releasing back up to the top. This time I'm going to circle the shoulders forward. Just circling that round. And then we're going to take that stretch over to the other side. So reaching down with the right arm, stretching through the left side of the body, and then just taking that arm all the way up and over to increase that stretch. And then release back. We're going to do that one more time. So circling backwards, through the shoulders, then stretching down and reaching across. And the other way, circling forwards. And then stretch down, top arm coming over, and circle back up to standing. So from here, we're going to work a little bit into the legs. We're going to take the feet a bit wider, turn the toes out to the side. And again, thinking about having that long spine, we're going to bend through the knees. So your knees track in line with your second toe as you go down. So keeping those knees pushing out, working into the glutes. And then coming back up. So we sink down. And then come back. And again, sink down. Working into the legs. And back up. And on this next one, we're going to hold at the bottom. So just holding that position. Remembering to keep those knees pushing out. Working into the glutes. Keeping your center set and your spine nice and long. And just hold in this position, trying to stay low if you can. We're going to lift through one heel. Lift that down and then lift through the other heel. So you're just switching there from side to side, trying to keep the hips nice and level if you can. And trying to have that smooth movement through the ankle as you lift and control down. We'll just do a couple more on each side. And then we're going to take another little stretch. So from here, we straighten both legs, turn your toes to face forwards as you come down the opposite leg and just reach the opposite hand up towards the ceiling. You're trying to flatten down through your upper rib. You should feel a stretch through that leg as you do this exercise. From here, we're going to circle back into our squat position. And this time, rather than moving through the ankles, we're just going to pulse the arms. We're just working for a little bit of endurance through the quads, through the glutes, keeping an eye on that posture as we pulse through the arms. Well done, this is looking good. If you're really struggling, you can come up a little bit, and if you're finding it quite easy, then just sink down a little bit deeper into that. And then we're going to take that stretch across to the other side this time. So you straighten both legs, toes point forwards on this side. As you reach down the leg, take the other arm up towards the ceiling and just holding that triangle position. Getting that stretch into the opposite leg this time, trying to flatten those ribs down. And then coming back once again into our plie squat position or wide squat position. This time, a bit of a challenge. We're going to lift both ankles and then control back down. So again, trying to keep the hips as still as possible, lifting up through both and then controlling down. Not going to do too many here. We'll make this our last one, just lifting up, trying to get those heels as high as possible, remembering those springs under the heels, helping to control you down, and then just take a circle of the arms as we come back up standing, walk the feet back in, once again, underneath your hips. From here, to finish off our warm-up, we're going to do Pilates classic exercise known as the roll down. I'll turn the side on so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. So from here, we take our chin to our chest, and we continue that roll down from the top of our spine, through our mid-back, our lower back, just allowing the hands to hang heavy to the floor, head to relax down. Trying to draw in through your centre and get that nice curve through the whole of your spine. If you need to, you can place a little bend into your knees. And then to come back up, we restack from the base of our spine. So just coming back up, again, one vertebra after the other, restacking like building blocks back into that standing position. So we'll just do a couple more of those. So chin to chest, rolling down, mid back, lower back, feeling that stretch through the back of the legs and that nice open feeling through the spine. And then restacking piece by piece, trying to feel that individual movement through the spine as you come back up. So on this next one, we're going to hold it at the bottom. So rolling down, piece by piece by piece. Little bend into your knees if you need to. And just hold that position there. Let's say nice and relax through the arms, relax through the head. Feeling that stretch through the back of the legs. And then from here, we're going to walk the hands forwards and come into a kneeling position on your mat. So I'm just going to change my camera angle slightly here so that you can see me on the mat. And so you want to be in that nice flat back, 4-point kneeling position. Your hands are ever so slightly in front of your shoulders, your knees are directly under your hips. And first of all, think about your head position. So make sure that your chin is looking forward, that you're keeping the chin gently tucked in, trying to get nice length through the back of your neck. It's almost as if a balloon is attached to the back of your head, just lifting that up into position. Your upper back wants to be flat rather than rounded, so try and flatten that out, but at the same time you want to be strong through your arms and your shoulders. So you're imagining you've got a candle in underneath your chest, and you're lifting your chest away from that candle. Moving on to your lower back, just again making sure the tailbone's lengthened away and you're not arching through your lower back. So gently switching on through your centre, through your abdominals, just to hold that neutral position of your lower back. So once you feel you're in a good position there, we're just going to hold that. I will say, if you feel any discomfort through your wrists at all in this position, you do have the option through all of these kneeling exercises to come up onto your knuckles if that feels more comfortable for you. So we're holding this position, and all we're going to do to begin with is we're going to slide away one arm and one leg, keeping in contact with the mat, and then return it back to that start position, and then switch to the other side. So you slide the arm and the leg away, trying not to get any movement through the body, and then slide back in. So just keep that going in your own time, switching from side to side, really focusing on keeping your body nice and still and trying to have as long a spine as you can. Lengthening your tailbone and the crown of your head away as you move one side and then the other. Imagine that you've got a tray of drinks on your back. You don't want to spill any, so you're trying to keep that nice and still. And then if you're finding that quite easy on this next one, when you slide the hand and leg away, you can continue that movement and come up so you've got the opposite arm and leg lifted. Now be careful when you do that, you don't lift too high, so you don't want to start arching through your back. It's more thinking about lengthening your fingertip and your toe away from each other, and then switching to the other side. So again, just keeping that going, switching from one side to the other. I'm just going to come and have a little closer look at how you're getting on there. So this looks good. I'm seeing some really nice head and neck positions, good through the shoulders, well done. Nice, slow, controlled movements as well, that's great. Flicking through there, perfect. So on this next one, we're going to hold the arm and leg out, And keeping everything nice and still, we're just going to move from the shoulder and hip, take the arm and leg out to the side, and then lowering that back in. So just taking that as far as you can without losing your body position. To the side and back. Keeping that length between the fingers and the toes. And then let's switch that over to the other side. So bring that down under control, lifting up through the opposite side. And then once again, taking the arm and leg out to the side and then back in, keeping strong through your center, keeping your upper back nice and flat. Lovely, to the last one on this side. And then coming back down, I'm going to give everybody's wrists a little rest here and just drop down so that you're resting on your elbows. Then from this position, we're going to straighten out through one leg, place the toes down, then lengthen away through the other side and just drop your hips so that you're in a nice long plank position there. We're just going to hold this position. Now, if you find this is too difficult, you can place your knees down onto the mat. If you're finding that that's quite easy, then you can start lifting one leg and then the other. Just be careful if you've done that, you don't start to sink down in your middle. So keep strong through your center. Keep lowering down through your upper back, so that you don't start to round through here as well. So if you can take a little check of yourself in the camera, just check your alignment there, making sure that you're in that nice straight line. Either holding or lifting or down onto the knees, whichever option you decide. And then from there, we're going to sit back all the way onto your heels. Reach the arms forwards. This is our shell stretch. If it doesn't feel comfortable for you to sit all the way down onto your heels, you can keep your hips a little bit higher, but whichever way you're in, just reaching those fingertips away. Getting a nice stretch. And then we're going to come up into kneeling, clasp the hands behind you, and just open out through your chest. So it's okay if you've got a little bit of a bend in your back, but try not to allow your ribs just to stick forward. So you're keeping that strong posture as much as possible and just localizing the stretch to your chest and the fronts of your shoulders. And then from here, we're going to come and lie onto our back. So if you've got a folded towel or a little cushion, you might want to put that in just to rest in underneath your head. Coming down into a rest position where you've got your knees bent, hips, knees and ankles in line. Pelvis just resting in its natural resting position, so you don't want to squash your back down into the mat. Sometimes you don't have a big arch underneath, so just in its neutral position, little gap. So if you had like a little blueberry in underneath your lower back, you wouldn't be squashing it, and you're going to keep that position throughout. Again, we're open across the shoulders and long through the back of the neck. From here, we're going to bring the arms up, so the fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling. We're just going to take little circles round with the arms. Say little, actually quite big circles. So you drop them back as far as you can without the ribs sticking up. So taking them back as far as you can and then circling round all the way back until your fingertips are up. So as you're circling round there, the only thing that should be moving is from the shoulder. Your back staying still, you're keeping that little blueberry under your lower back. Hips, knees, ankles are in line. You've just got a gentle activation through your tummy. Now this probably feels quite easy for a lot of you, so to make it a little bit more challenging, what you can do is lift one leg so that your knee comes to rest directly over your hips. And if that feels quite easy, then just connect a little bit stronger to your abdominals to allow that second leg to gently float up and just place the knees and the ankles together. So this is what's known as double tabletop. So we're going to hold that double tabletop position as you circle the arms round. Again, that blueberry should still be sitting nicely under your lower back. Still just gentle activation through your tummy, so make sure that they're not doming out. If you find that that happens, or your back's arching, or you've got any tension through your lower back, then just come back to that rest position with both legs on the ground. So whichever option you've taken there, either with the feet on the ground or the feet lifted, we're going to lengthen away through one leg and then return back in. On the next one, switch to the other side. So as the arms go overhead, the leg slides away, and as the arms circle back, the knee comes back in. And each time just switching from one side to the other. If you're in your double tabletop position, then a little gap between your knees and just reach away with your toes on one side and then on the other side. You can start to lower that leg down towards the ground as long as you're keeping your position through your back's not starting to arch, and you're not getting that doming through your tummy muscles. So keep that going just for a couple more. I'm just going to come and have another little sneaky look at how you're getting on there. So just remembering, when you come to your tabletop position, your knees should be directly over your hips and your ankles in line with your knees. So if your feet are a little bit high, just drop them down in line with your knees. Good. And again, if that's feeling quite easy for you, you have the option of adding in your abdo prep. So basically abdo prep, imagine you've got little strings on the bottom of your ribs. You're going to pull on those and bring your ribs down, slide them down towards that neutral pelvis. And as you do that, your head and shoulders naturally lift off the ground. And then you do the exact same exercise in this position. So what I was saying there before about the tabletop position, just making sure knees are over your hips and ankles in line with your knees, so the feet aren't too high or too low. Now, if you've taken that option and that feels quite easy, then your last option is to gently bring the knees together and we extend away through both legs as you reach the arms away. This one is quite challenging, so do make sure that as you take the legs away, you're not starting to arch through your back and you're not getting that doming through your tummy muscles. They're just gently drawing in towards you. Still with your back in its neutral position, not squashing that blueberry. So we'll just do a couple more here, especially if you just got into this exercise. Might want to do a couple more. And then from there, just hug your knees into your chest, allow your head and shoulders to rest down onto the mat and onto your head cushion if you've got one. And then from there, just taking some circles round with your knees, just releasing any tension from your hips. So in one direction and then in the opposite direction. And then from there, rest down one leg, then the other. If you've got a head cushion in, just take that out for this next exercise so that you're not going to put any pressure onto your neck. So we're going into our shoulder bridge. You might want to walk your feet just a little bit closer in towards your hips, in towards your bottom. And then from here, we're going to roll back through our pelvis. So we are actually, if you're imagining that blueberry, we are going to actually squash it this time. So we're tilting the pelvis backwards, flattening the back into the mat. And then from here, we peel the tailbone off the mat and then lift up piece by piece, one vertebra at a time, until you're resting onto your shoulder blades. So don't lift too high. You don't want to have an arch in your back. You still want to have that connection through your center and switched on through here, but you should feel it working into your glutes as you come into that bridge position. And then as you come back down, we reverse that curve. So we touch down from the top first, and then lower down one vertebra at a time, piece by piece by piece, and then end just by bringing that pelvis back to neutral. So we're going to combine this with our breathing, make it a little bit quicker. So we inhale to prepare, exhale as you roll back and roll up one vertebra at a time into your position. Inhale to hold at the top, and then exhale, breathe out as you come all the way back down to that starting position. So just continue with that in your own time, working with your own breath, aiming for a nice, smooth, flowing movement as you come up and down. Remembering that as you come to the top of the movement, you want to lift the hips as high as you can, but without arching through the lower back. And try not to allow your ribs to stick up towards the ceiling. So you're still keeping those down towards your pelvis. Also be mindful you're keeping that gap, hips, knees and ankles all the time as you're doing the exercise. As you come up, just taking those knees away over the ankles and then releasing back down. So on this next one, we're going to hold at the top of the movement. Again, just be careful you're not lifting up too high, so there shouldn't be any pressure in your neck at all. Want to squeeze those hips as high as you can, but without arching your lower back. And then from here, imagine you've got a spirit level across your hips. You're going to allow one leg to lift up, just so that your hips are level and your thighs are level, and then bring that leg, fold that leg back down, and then take the other leg away. Now this can be quite challenging, and if you're finding that as you lift the leg, the hips really dropping down, or your back starting to arch, or you find that as you lift the leg, you're getting a lot of cramping in your hamstrings, then don't go for that exercise. Just stick with both legs down on the floor. You can either hold the position at the top to work for a little bit of endurance, or you can just continue with the exercise that we were doing before, lifting up and down piece by piece by piece. So if you find that it's, you're managing to cope fine with the leg lift, just hold and continue switching from side to side. And as you're doing that, just feeling the glutes switch on, making sure there's not too much in the hamstrings or too much through your lower back. You might feel it a little bit in these places, but it should be mainly the glutes that are doing the work here. And just switching one to the other. Again, I'm just going to come and have a quick look how you're doing here. Good, good. Make sure that as you're lifting one leg and the other, that you don't start to allow the hips to drop down and down. So keeping those lifted. Good. And before we move on next, you've been doing that for quite a while, I'll allow you to have a little rest. So just roll back down, come back into your resting position. So if you're on a double leg, you're going to come up and hold it this time. You're going to lift your arms and you're going to do little scissor movements with your arms, okay? So working for a bit of endurance while we're bringing some movement through the upper body. If you are fine on a single leg, you're going to take that leg away and hold it, and then you're going to lift up and down on that one side. So the hips stay level, you're working through the glutes, you're keeping that leg nice and long and the hips completely stable. We'll just do one more here, and then switch that over. So strong position, float the leg away without any movement, and then lifting and lowering through the leg. Remember, your option, if you don't want to do the single leg, is to be on double leg with those scissor arms. So just continuing there, whichever choice you've taken there. Just a couple more. And then fold that leg in, or take your arms down and just roll back down, piece by piece by piece, back onto the mat. I'm going to take a little glute stretch here. So take your right foot onto your left knee, and then just reach through for that leg, draw it in towards you just to get a stretch onto the right glute. And switch that over to bringing left onto right. Again, reaching through and just getting that nice stretch into your glutes after you've been working them. And before work them a little bit more. So resting down here, we're going to come and lie onto your side. So just bring yourself so that you're facing the camera. I'm going to take whichever arm is on the bottom, take it out and stretch it out along the floor. If you've got a little head cushion or a folded towel, place that in between your head and your arm, just to keep your head in line. If you don't have one, it's not the end of the world, it's fine. You can just rest your head onto your arm. And then from here, I want you to really focus on your back position. So imagine you've got a wall behind you. You want your back and your pelvis, your shoulders, your head, all to be resting against that wall. And we've talked about this a lot tonight, is not allowing the ribs to pop forward. So keeping those ribs connected, so you're switching on through your center. As you do that, you should also, hopefully you can see this on the camera, have a little gap between your waist and the mat. So you don't just want to be squashed down into the mat, lifting up by connecting through your center and keeping that alignment with a little gap in underneath your waist. So getting close to Christmas, well, imagine it's a chocolate this time in underneath your waist, and you don't want to squash that during these exercises. And then from here, you're going to take your legs out away from you, and you can have your feet ever so slightly in front of you. Don't have them way in front of you, but they can be slightly in front of you, just so that you can get your balance with this exercise. So from here, keeping the waist lifted, keeping set through your center, you're going to take that top arm overhead, and you can either touch your thumbs together or link your thumbs together with the hands over your head, stretching them away. And then from here, you're going to lift that top leg in line with your hip. Now, some of you might find this quite a challenge, even just holding this position. So if you're finding this too much of a challenge, you're wobbling all over the place, to make it a little bit easier, you can bend your bottom leg, or you can bring that top hand and just place it in front of your body. So if from here or any time during the exercise you find that too challenging, that's your option to make it slightly easier. So from this lifted position, we're going to glide that top leg forwards and backwards. Sounds simple, but can actually be quite challenging. It's almost as if you're sliding that leg along a tabletop and then sliding it back again. You can go slightly behind you, but don't go too far, else you will end up arching through your back. And just trying to keep that balance on your side, set through your center with that little gap in underneath. Now I'm just going to come and have a little look at how you're getting on with this once again. Good, good, good. This is nice. So if you're wobbling a little bit, that's absolutely fine. Just challenging yourself, and again, keeping that hip and knee and ankle all in line. Well done. Good. Good. You look like you've got that perfect. So this one just challenges the stability through your center a little bit. You see, working directly into that streamlined position. And then what you're going to do on this next one is just hold the leg there. We're going to work into the glutes a little bit. So you can either keep your arm overhead or you can bring it down to your side or just rest it in front of you. And we're going to lift and lower through that top leg. Now, as you lift and lower the leg, make sure the movement is coming from the hip, that you're not squashing your chocolate there, so you're keeping that there and your hips not dropping down and back. So the hips stay level and you just lift and lower through the leg. Should be feeling it into your glutes as you do this. And just bring it back to hip level rather than resting it all the way back down, just so that you're working the whole time in through your glutes. Good, well done. We're going to make this our last one, and again, holding it at hip height, we're going to draw a circle with your toes. You're tracing up and back and round. Again, working into the glutes, but also challenging that balance as well, keeping that little gap under the waist. And just in case you aren't quite feeling your glutes yet, we'll finish with one more set of that lift and lower. Again, really focus on keeping that length through the body. Well done. Last one here, and then just bring that leg all the way in front of you so that you get a nice stretch through your glutes there. Well done. That was quite a challenging little sequence. Okay, from there, you're going to bend both of your knees and bring your arms in front of you. I'm just going to work on a little bit of mobility through the upper body. So from here, imagine you've got a piece of chalk in that top hand. You're going to draw a chalk circle all the way over your head, round to the back of the room, and then all the way back. You take that arm, circle all the way over. As you circle back, there can be a little bit of movement through your hips, but try not to get too much movement so that you're really opening out through your chest and your upper back as you do the exercise. Lengthen that arm away from you as much as possible. You may find that as you get to the back of the movement, your hand lifts away from the floor. That's fine. Just work with the range that you have. We'll do one last one here. And then from here, we're going to bend that bottom arm and just go for a little sleeper stretch. So just bringing that hand down, feeling a stretch into the back of that bottom shoulder. As you're doing that, just be careful that the whole of your shoulder isn't lifting up. You've still got that, that blocked in underneath you. Well done. Okay, we've got all of that to do on the other side. So just bring yourself up to sitting, take your head across to the other side of the mat, and we'll just repeat that sequence on the other side. We've got the arms stretched out. You've got your back nice and straight, head, back, hips all resting against that imaginary wall. Lengthening your feet away. It can be slightly in front of you, just to help with that balance. And then connecting to your center, keeping those ribs just gently melting down towards your hips and creating that little gap in underneath your waist there. From there, the top arm comes up and over, and that top leg is going to lift level with your hips. And then trying to keep that straight line through the body, we're just going to take the leg forwards and backwards. You want to try and keep your hips in line. Try, as you bring the hips and leg forward, that the hip doesn't follow it. So it's just a movement of the leg with the pelvis staying nice and centered, body completely straight. Really thinking about drawing your centre in towards you to help keep that balance. If you want to, you can point your toes, you come forwards, pull them back as you return. Trying to lengthen away through the fingers. And then holding the leg there, lifting and lowering through that top leg, working into the glutes. Keeping your centre set, keeping that chocolate in underneath your waist. Sometimes this second side can feel a little bit harder than the first one. Just because even though you don't know it, this bottom side is working quite hard to stabilise your body and stop you from falling over. And then if you remember on the other side, we then went for those circles, so circling round through the top leg, keeping everything nice and still and tracing that circle round with your toes. And then finishing off with one more set of lift and lower, trying to keep that same height the whole time. So as you continue, the legs not getting lower and lower, try and reach those toes up as high as you did on your last rep, as you did on your first. Well done. And again, try not to let it drop all the way down, just taking it to hip height. Last one here, and then bring that leg in front. Allow yourself to have a little bit of rest and recovery and a bit of a stretch into that hip and glute. And then from there, moving into our chalk circles or arm openings, bringing one arm on top of the other and just tracing that line and that circle round overhead. And you might find that one side feels a little bit easier than the other. Definitely feel like my hand is lifting up a little bit more on this side than on the other. So it's good to do exercises on both sides so that you even yourself up and helps you to become aware of any areas where you might be a bit tighter one side than the other. So make this our last circle round, and then bend that bottom arm and just take a sleeper stretch. Should be feeling the stretch into the back of your shoulder. If your shoulders are, if you've got quite good mobility through your shoulder, you might not feel it so much, but that's fine. And from here, we're going to come round onto our hands and knees. I'm going to finish with a quick hip flexor stretch. Onto my camera angle and put it there. My head doesn't disappear off the top. So on your knees, bringing one leg in front and just tucking your tailbone down so that you get stretch through the front of the hip. And then straighten out that front leg, bend that leg and allow your body to come forwards. You can see you're getting in, oh, you've got it there. Nice stretching. A little bit of a deeper hip flexor stretch. And then reaching those arms, if you want, all the way up to the ceiling. So we're just getting a stretch right the way through the front of the body there. And then drop the arms down, we'll switch that over to the other side. First of all, coming into that high kneeling position, tucking the tailbone under, and to keep that length through the spine, and a stretch through the front of the hip. Lengthen the leg away, and then if you bend that knee, just brings you into that hip flexor stretch. You can either have your hands on the floor, on your knee, or as we did on the other side, reaching the arms up and overhead. Well done. And then bring those hands down. Bring that leg back towards it. We did this earlier in the class, so just resting back into your shell stretch. Just allow your head to relax down onto the mat. Remember, I said earlier, if it's not comfortable for you to sit all the way down, you can keep the hips a little bit higher. Just allowing your upper body to relax in this position this time. And then from here, just tuck your toes under. Allow your heels to contact the mat. And then just as we came down onto the mat, we're going to come back up in the same way. So just re-stacking through our roll up, one vertebra on top of the other. When you get to the top, just give your shoulders a little roll round. And that's the end of our class, guys. So thank you very much. That looked great. For those of you who had your cameras on, you looked really good. So well done. If anybody has any questions, I will pause the recording there now and feel free just to ask them. Or as I say, you can use the chat function. But thank you all very much. That was brilliant. Well done. And I will hopefully see you all again next week.